I'd like to welcome y'all back to another episode of Beyond the Fear podcast, the place where y'all come for motivation, inspiration, uplifting, and overall positive message. I'm your host, DJ. And today's episode is about a saying that I used to hear a bunch when I was a little kid, and I never quite understood the meaning of it. And that's a closed mouth doesn't get fed. Now, as a kid, and for the longest time, I thought that saying was just about food. Like you need to tell somebody you're hungry if you want something to eat. So, like I said, like when I was young, that's what I thought that saying was about. Never really thought about it in any other context other than, food. So it really wasn't until I started working and I started going through things and realizing that I need to have a voice. It wasn't until I really started finding my voice that I really started to understand the true meaning behind that. And, because at the end of the day, who who better to fight for you than you? Because who knows what you're going through better than you? Who knows your struggles better than you? Who knows what makes you uncomfortable better than you? Like all of these things, so you have to open your mouth and you have to advocate and fight for yourself. And it took me going to work and meeting a lot of bosses who were very disrespectful, very rude. And, I used to always hear, oh, that's just them being them. And that's one thing that I do hate. I hate hearing people tell me, "Oh, well, that's just that person being that person." Like that's supposed to make it okay. That's supposed to make the disrespect and the rudeness okay. And for me, it'll never be okay. It'll never be okay for you, especially as a boss. Like you're supposed to be the person setting the tone. You're supposed to be watching over. You're supposed to be the support. You're supposed to be helping us. You're supposed to be the person that we go to when something's going wrong. So when you're the person being disrespectful or you're the person causing the wrong, it's like I can't explain it, man. I can't put into words how frustrating that is, how annoying that is, how um upset I get behind those things. But the beautiful thing that came from it is I found my voice and I found the true meaning of a closed mouth doesn't get fed. And so for me, I think that is so important to find your voice. It's so important to fight for yourself and advocate for yourself because too many times we wait on other people, whether it be a manager, a supervisor, because we feel like, it's not our place to speak on this or it's not our place to talk about these things. And, and maybe even in orientation, we're told, hey, chain of command, chain of command. And they're not wrong. Let me just start off by saying that they're not wrong. Chain of command, do all of those things. But sometimes you do have to advocate for yourself. Because, maybe there's a lot going on, so the manager can't get to it in time, or the supervisor, whatever. They can't get to what you need them to get to in time because they got so many other things going on, or maybe whatever's bothering you has ramped up and now it's more of an urgent thing than what it was before, whatever the case may be. Or maybe the person just doesn't care. Maybe it's not as big of an issue for them that it is for you. Maybe it's low on their list of things to do and it's a top priority for you because it's affecting you personally. It may not be affecting them. And so, you have to learn when to advocate for yourself, but it's so important to find your voice because for the longest time for me, because I've never really been a shy person, but I have been a person to avoid conflicts. Like when it comes to having fun, laughing, being the life of the party, center of attention in certain aspects, didn't mind that, didn't shy away from that. But when it came to conflicts and things like that, I would kind of shy away from that and go quiet and, just do my best not to rock the boat because most of my life, I've always been the biggest or tallest person in my classroom or in my work environment, things like that. So it's been several times where I've been guilty just because of my size. I've done nothing wrong, wasn't a part of whatever was going on. But when the people in the authoritative positions get there, whether it be a teacher, principal, manager, whatever, they see me and automatically assume that I'm guilty, automatically assume that I'm one of the suspects, one of the people who did something wrong. And so for the longest time, I would avoid, or at least try to avoid conflict for that reason, because I know that as soon as, you know, people get come around, the teachers or whatever, I know I'm getting blamed as soon as they see me. Or even if they don't blame me, they're going to ask, hey, were you know what I'm saying? In some type of way, they're going to make me feel like I'm responsible for what's going on in some type of way, whether it's something big, something small. I'm going to get some type of blame or whatever. And you already know how they go. Once the teacher blames you, your parents aren't going to believe you. The principal ain't going to believe you. It's going to be your word against her teacher's word. Who they going to believe? They're going to believe the teacher every single time. So for me, for the longest time, I avoided conflict. And for the longest time, I hated people blaming me for things that I didn't do. I think that was probably one of the things that used to piss me off and upset me the most, was somebody blaming me for something that I didn't do for that reason, because I used to get in trouble a lot for things that I didn't do. And then it gave me that mindset, well, if I'm going to get in trouble anyway, I might as well. So as a kid, I went through my phase of, you know, just getting into trouble just because it's like, I'm gonna get blamed for it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Just because of my size alone, I'm going to get blamed as soon as a teacher gets called or whatever. Somebody gets over there, I'm gonna get blamed anyway. So I might as well. If I'm gonna get in trouble anyway, if I'm gonna get suspended, ISS, OSS, I'm gonna go through this stuff anyway. I might as well do the stuff, because there's no way that they're going to believe me over what a teacher says. If the teacher says I did it, then I'm automatically guilty whether I did it or not. And so I grew up with that type of understanding. So for me, for the longest time, I avoided conflict if I could. If I could avoid it, I avoided it. If it was something that I could walk away from, I walked away from it. If it was something dealing with a teacher bothering me, I just kept my mouth shut. And excuse me, or a supervisor harassing me, or whatever the case is, whatever it was, I did my best to just be quiet and stay away from it. I didn't try to bring attention to myself. I didn't try to bring attention to the situation, because I always just assumed that I was going to be the one at fault. Even if I was the victim in the situation, I figured I was going to get some type of blame for something. And I think that, because I know I've talked about this before, when I started um, at Lowe's, that was really like the beginning of me finding my voice, because my manager at that time was somebody who didn't care how she talked to people. I didn't care how she came across when she was talking to you, especially if she was upset. She could be upset about something that didn't have anything to do with you, but when she talks to you, and when she's around you, she gonna talk to you in any type of way. But the moment you talk to her back in the way that she talked to you, she would get like offended and all of this stuff. And so that was the start of me finding my voice, because after a while of just taking disrespect and taking people talking to you any type of way, and people talking to you like you less than, after a while you get tired of it. And so again, we're human. And it was a day where, I don't know what was going on with me, but I had other things going on outside of work that had nothing to do with her, had nothing to do with the job. And so, I'm already in a mental space of, just more so just leave me alone, relax. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm in my corner doing my job. I'm in my area doing my job. I'm not bothering anybody. I'm not saying anything to anybody. And so people already kind of knew something was up, because I was more like that loud, always laughing. You could hear me at the other end of the store, when I get to laughing and hanging out and all that stuff. So people knew something was up because they'd be like, "Hey, what up?" And I'm just kind of like, "What? How y'all doing?" Just very chill, not my normal self. So people kind of knew something was going on, and so she had came up saying something or whatever, and asking me to do something. So I'm like, okay, I'll get to it. When I get just when I get a chance to do it, but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take care of it. So I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Then she comes back around, sees that it's not done. And so she comes and, just doing her typical thing, just going like being disrespectful. And again, I didn't take the time to get to know her. So I can't sit here and say it was or wasn't intentional. I honestly don't know because I didn't really truly take the time to get to know her, to be fair to her. But, just she was being like very disrespectful and, with her words and things like that. So again, mind you, I'm just in a space where, I'm not dealing with it well this particular day. So we get into it. And so, I get called into the office with the store manager. And so me and the store manager are having a conversation. And I'm just like, and I asked the store manager or the assistant store manager, I think she was the assistant store manager. And I asked her, I'm like, why is it okay for her to talk to me in this type of way? And she was like, first thing she said was that, that is your manager. And I'm like, I understand that. And if she's asking me to do something, that's completely fine. But the stuff that I'm talking about is the disrespect. It's the way she's doing it. And I've spoken to her several times about it. I know I've spoken to other managers about it. I even know that you've been in the room when I've spoken to other managers about it. So you know about it. And all I keep getting back is, well, that's just her being her. So my question is, why is that okay? Why is her being disrespectful to me okay? But in the moment, I give her the energy that she gave me, that she's been giving me. The first time I give her that energy back, I got to come to the office. And so me and the assistant store manager, we had like a 45-minute long conversation about it or whatever. And in that moment, like in that conversation, it just made me realize how important my voice is. And because it made me realize that nobody's going to fight for me if I don't fight for myself. Nobody's going to push for her, meaning my direct manager. Nobody's going to push for her to stop talking to me crazy if I don't push for it. I have to be the person to push for it. So I went to the actual store manager and him and I had a conversation. And then that's when things started to change because then me and my manager, my direct manager, really didn't have too many words with each other after that. You know what I'm saying? It was just more so if she needed me in a different area than what I normally work, she'll say that, or if she needed me to go do something, she'll cool. But other than that, we just stopped talking. And it was like in that moment, for sure, it's like when I knew, okay, I have to start speaking up. I have to find my voice because nobody else is going to do this. Even though they see it, they see the disrespect and they see the stuff that she's saying and the stuff that she's doing towards me. They're not going to say anything if I don't say anything. And so that was like the start of me finding my voice and me letting go of worrying about the confrontation. Because again, it's one of those things where in my mind, I was like, hey, I'm already getting in trouble anyway. So when I meet her disrespect with disrespect, I'm going to get in trouble anyway. So I might as well speak my mind. I might as well get it off my chest. I might as well say what I need to say. And again, I had to learn, through trial and error that there are ways to go about standing up for yourself. And there's ways to go about, defending yourself and speaking up for yourself. So I had to learn through trials and tribulations that, certain ways aren't the best ways. They're not going to be received as well, even though, you are doing the right thing. You may not be going about it the right way. And so I learned some lessons, but the most important thing that I had to learn was finding my voice and protecting myself because Not saying nobody would ever do it for me, but those people who will do it for you are going to be far. You know what I'm saying? It's not gonna be a lot of them. It's not gonna be a lot of people who just see something going on and going to say something, and not only say something but stand on it and continue to say something every time they see it. They might say something once, and and it might stop for a little while, but then once it starts back up, it's, what I'm saying, they might be like, hey, well, I tried, and to their credit, they did, and it worked for a little bit. But the best thing that you can do is learn how to speak up for yourself. And that's one thing that I've learned how to do from the get go, from the interviews, and I think it's put me, it's put me in a lot of good positions, but it's put me in some tough positions too. But I wouldn't change who I am, like the person that I am now, and the person who speaks up for themselves, and the person who has no problem telling you how they feel. Like, I'm not going to change who I am. It basically, what it does for me is it lets me know if this place is even for me, as far as like jobs and even with friends and things like that. It's like I'm learning how to set up certain boundaries, and let people know that certain things ain't gonna fly with me. Certain things aren't gonna go well with me when it comes to talking to me or talking about me. And I think that it's served me well for the most part. I think that where it's kind of hindered me a little bit is it kind of made me, um people have labeled me a troublemaker. Like at one of my previous jobs, I didn't mind speaking out. So one of the things that they said was, when we went through orientation, that, hey, you miss days, you miss a day, it's a point. You get up to a certain amount of points, you're fired. But if you get through, like, let's just say October 1st through October 31st, and you don't miss any days in that time, the first time you do it, it's like half a point. And then every concurrent month that you do the same. So if you did the same thing November and December, every time after that would be a point off. So they weren't doing that. They were giving us the points for missing days, but they weren't taking points off. And so one day I just got tired of, because I mean, every day we would have to come in and have a morning meeting about points and how important it is for attendance and all that stuff. And so, one day I just got tired of hearing about it, and I just raised my hand and I was like, well, what about the process of getting points back? And mind you, every single supervisor that was up there was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I know that I was told in orientation that if we went the start of the month to the end of the month with no absences, the first time we did it, it will be half a point. And every single time after that, especially congruent, like every time in a row that we did that, it will be a point after that. I got 4 points in December because I was sick. And I didn't say anything till like March or April, but I hadn't missed a day in that time. So all of January, all of February, all of March, what I'm saying, I was good. So when we having this conversation in April, no points came off. And so, but none of the managers knew that part of the attendance policy. They were like, oh, we didn't know about that. We'll have to do some research and get back to you. So the next day, they come in, we have our morning meeting. It's the same thing, them telling us about how important it is. So I raised my hand again and I'm like, hey, what's going on? Did y'all find out anything? And they were like, oh yeah, that's right. Cause they was going to let the whole meeting, they were going to let the morning meeting come and go without speaking on it. So they were like, yeah, so we did talk to HR and the policy is da 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 da. So going forward, so the fact that I just did 3 months not missing a day, they don't mind, what I'm saying? They're not going to give me the points for that, but just going forward, boom, boom. So, all right, cool. So, so I was already on a few managers and supervisors' radar for that. It's like, okay, they already kind of, I see by the way that they were reacting when I was saying stuff. And then as I'm throughout the day and, I'm just kind of catching them, how they looking at me, it's like, okay, I'm on their radar. Because I I don't like to rock the boat, but I mean, fair is fair. So so the next thing was everybody's year was getting ready to come up, and so the big thing was, hey, everybody's supposed to get a raise every single year. So everybody's reaching out to me like, hey, are you gonna speak on the raise? Are you gonna speak on the raise? And I'm like, why would I speak on the raise? And they were like, well, because you spoke on this. So I'm like, all right, cool, not a problem. I'll speak on it because I want to know myself, so I'll speak on it. So when the meeting come around, I raised my hand, and I could see some men that just kind of roll their eyes and like, oh, here we go, this guy. So I asked them, I was like, hey, we were told that, when people's years were coming around, there would be evaluations. We would do like evaluations and we would get raises. And I was like, so when do those evaluations start? And the first thing that the guy told me was like, we don't like to talk money in big groups. We like to do that individually. And so I was like, well, that's fine. When are we going to do the evaluations? Because I know we're not going to do evaluations in a group. We're going to do evaluations one-on-ones. So when can we expect evaluations? And he was like, you'll have to get with your direct manager or direct supervisor or whatever, and y'all will go over that. So I'm like, all right, cool. Get with, at that time, I think I had two managers, got with both of them, really didn't get a clear answer from either of them. So I'm like, all right, cool. Next day roll around, hand go up again. I was like, I hate to be that guy. That was the first thing I said. And they were like, you're already that guy. That's what the guy told me. And I was like, well, if that's the case, then cool. I'm still haven't gotten a clear answer. Da 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 da. And so what it did was that second time I did it, we had our conversation or whatever. He pulled me to the side after the meeting. He was like, hey, we really don't like discussing money with a big group, and I'm like, well, I understand that, but I'm not getting answers anywhere else. So this is the best time when all the managers and all the supervisors are together in one spot. This is the best time to talk about it. And so long story short, I just became the guy in that warehouse that everybody went to whenever they had a problem. Whether that was the temps wanting to know when they were going to get pulled over to the actual company and get full time, whether it was the temps not getting paid, I pretty much became like even though we didn't have a union, I pretty much became like a union rep for them and for the people, for the temps and for the people that were in the actual company, that were on with the company, you know what I'm saying? Because those were two different rules, two different sets of rules. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So, it became a burden because now I'm asking about things that have absolutely nothing to do with me. And, it became a lot, but it also helped some people gain their voices. And so now you've seen more people raising their hands, more people trying to figure out what's going on. So, I think that it was a beautiful thing that it happened that way because it showed other people, like a lot of other people are wanting to know. Because I mean, the first time that I did ask the question about the points, the attendant points, a lot of people were coming up to me like, man, thank you, because we wanted to know the same thing. When I asked about the raises, a bunch of people were coming up to me, groups at a time, like, hey, man, thank you, man. We wanted to know what was going on. Like, we trying to figure it out too, because we being told this, we being told that, everybody's being told stuff, but nobody really wants to go to the managers. And so me being me, because I want to know, and I understand now, closed mouth don't get fed, because if we never say anything, who's to say who's to say we would have even gotten the raise. So I think that it showed people like you gotta speak up for yourself. You gotta hold them accountable. You gotta hold their feet to the fire. And you know what I'm saying? We gotta press it. Like, don't just bring it up and then that's the end of it. If you didn't get clarification, bring it up again and again, as many times you need to bring it up until you get a clear understanding of the rule, the clear understanding of this policy, a clear understanding of what the next step is that's going to lead to my raise or my evaluation, whatever it is. And so, yeah, I got labeled, as far as management goes, I got labeled a troublemaker. As far as the workers in the warehouse go, I was more like the go-to person, like, hey, can you ask about this? Can you ask about that? Because they knew, especially at that point, when the guy told me, well, you're already that person. When I said, oh, I don't want to be that person. And his response was, well, you're already that guy. So after that, it was just like, well, since I'm already that guy, I might as well ask these questions. These questions may have nothing to do with me, may not pertain to me, because it might be a lot of temps asking this and that, like the probationary period and all of this stuff. I'm gonna ask because since I'm already that guy and we've already caught y'all not knowing the policies and we've already caught y'all slacking and not doing what y'all need to do for us, y'all are shorting us, y'all are not doing right by us because y'all don't know the policies and y'all aren't putting things in place that should already be in place for us to help us. Y'all aren't implementing them. So yeah, I'm gonna ask because who knows who else you're shortening or who you're affecting because we're not speaking on it. Because you think that because we don't say nothing, we don't notice or we don't care. No, I'm gonna show you that we notice and we care by speaking up. And so that job in that situation showed me, proved to me, because I had already known how important it was. I knew that it was important. I think that job showed me how important it is and how impactful it is and how much not only do you need to speak up in one-on-one settings, but you need to speak up in front of other people so that they can see the importance of speaking up for yourself and standing up for yourself and talking about the things that concern you and the things that may be on your mind because they may be on other people's mind, and they need to know they're on pins and needles because they're scared to talk about it because they don't want to lose their job or they don't want to be looked a certain way by management. So sometimes you need to show them that, hey, you got to do what's best for you because management isn't always going to do that. Management isn't going to always look out for your best interest. Sometimes management and HR are going to look out for what's best for the business and not necessarily what's best for you as the worker. So you have to speak up for yourself. And like I said, we didn't have a union. So it was just, what I'm saying, just us kind of looking out for ourselves. And because everything is so new and everything was just kind of in flux and they just had like a big layoff. Everybody's kind of on pins and needles. Nobody's really willing to speak up. And so, you hear enough people asking the same questions like, hey, what about the raise? Or, hey, what about the policies? Boom, boom, boom. It's like you hear enough of that it's kind of like, well, the only way we're going to get answers is if we ask. And so, it took a scenario, it took a situation where I was getting affected personally, which was the attendance thing, where I still had these 4 points on my attendance, even after doing 3 months in a row of me being there without no call outs. It was finally like, okay, well, I got to say something because I'm still seeing these same 4 points from December. We already in April are getting ready to go into April. Ain't none of these points coming off. So, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, so people just was thanking me and all that stuff. But like I said, it just showed me how important it was. I knew that it was important to speak your mind or to speak up about certain issues. It just showed me how important it was and how big of an impact it can have on people by being willing to have these conversations, not just with the managers one-on-one, but in a big group where everybody can hear. Because sometimes, again, there's so many people who need these and who want these answers, who want to ask these questions, but they're so scared of the consequences or the retaliation. That's the word, the retaliation of asking these questions. And it's just like, it's so crazy that you got an environment like these managers create these environments where people are scared to ask questions. They're so scared to ask questions because they think that just asking this question is going to potentially make them lose their job. And so, man, it's just looking back on it now as I'm sitting here talking about it, it's scary to think about how much power and how much fear they gave people, including myself. I don't think that I was scared. I just think that nothing was really affecting me personally because they would always talk about the attendance, but I wasn't missing days. I wasn't calling out. It wasn't until I got sick at the end of December, right before Christmas. And like I said, going into April, we was either at the tail end of March or we was at the beginning of April, and I still had those 4 points. It was like, okay, y'all love telling us about pointing us. Y'all love telling us about how we're going to get these points, but nobody's talking about how these points can come off. So it started to affect me. So I was like, okay, well, I'm finna ask because I need to know why y'all have no problem being strict and implementing one side of these points of the attendance policy. Y'all have no problem enforcing that part of the attendance policy. Why are y'all so lax on this part of it, this side of it? If people are coming in doing what they're supposed to be doing, they need to get the reward that y'all told them in orientation they would receive. And so I'm not gonna lie, when I was asking these questions, I started to get a little heated because the guy even said, "Oh, well, you're doing what you're supposed to do, big whoop." And I'm like, yeah, it's a big whoop because y'all coming here every single day telling us how important it is to come to work. So when somebody stands up and says, "Hey, I've been doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I've been coming to work," all I'm asking for is what y'all told me I was entitled to for coming to work, which is a half a point off, and then every single time after that, a whole point off. And so I'm getting heated because why are you being condescending when I'm just simply asking you a question? And so it was just like in that moment, they realized, okay, he's not going to be the one to back down. And I think that all the other workers around realized, okay, he has no problem stepping up and talking to management. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm talking to the big guys, the big boss. That's him and I going back and forth. It wasn't disrespectful or crazy, but we were going back and forth because you ain't got to come at me with no condescending tone when I'm simply asking about what we were told in orientation. We were told we would get this if we did this. I've been doing this for 3 months, but I didn't get what I was told I was going to get. What's going on? And so, mind you, I wasn't doing that. And in that moment, I wasn't thinking about, taking care of so many people or helping to support so many people. I wasn't thinking about that. It was a selfish moment for me. But like I say, just looking back on it now, and even at that time when people were coming up to me thanking me, it just showed me the power of one voice. The one voice could be so powerful. You know what I'm saying? Imagine if everybody would have found their voice or had their voice and we're all speaking up at the same time. But it's the power of your voice. Your voice is very powerful. A lot of people don't want you to know that. A lot of people will try to downplay the power of your voice, but your voice is powerful and you need to learn how to use it. Learn how to speak up for yourself, learn how to speak up for others, learn how to speak up against things that you know are wrong. But your voice is very, very powerful. Closed mouths don't get fed. So if you're trying to eat, you're going to have to open your mouth and let them know you want something done. You tired of the disrespect. You tired of this. You tired of that. You got to speak up for yourself. Quit waiting for other people to speak up for you because they may not do it. That may never come. Or by the time somebody is willing to speak up for you, your spirit might be broken. You know what I'm saying? Because I know people can only take but so much disrespect before they either snap and start speaking up for themselves or they just break and fall into this. I'm just gonna take the disrespect and I'm gonna continue to take it because that's all I am. You know what I'm saying? You start to lose sight of how valuable you are and how worthy you are because you just let this disrespect go on for so long. But your voice is powerful. Time to start finding y'all voices. But that's it for today's message, man. Just please remember how powerful. Remember that your voice is powerful. Even if you don't know how powerful your voice is yet because you haven't utilized it, just know that you have power in your voice. And when you start to speak up for yourself, people will start to hear you. Trust and believe that they will start to hear you, but start speaking up for yourself, man. And I just want to thank everybody for listening on whatever platforms y'all are listening on. I appreciate y'all taking the time to do that. And if you're watching this on YouTube, y'all already know, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I hope that y'all have a blessed day and a blessed week and a blessed month of December, man.